All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick. Today we're going to break down the NFC race after the Eagles. We're going to talk Bears, Pats, and then break down some NBA. But the only place to start, Drew, after that weekend is Wolves beating the Thunder. And Rudy Gobert with the 102 defensive rating on the season. God. But no, I think the place to start is we're 4-0 with our best bets on the NFL the past 2 weeks. Cowboys didn't seem to want to cover the 6.5 or the 7 for a while, but then ultimately do it with ease. And then even more impressive is your Seahawks moneyline call, which was basically never in doubt outside of when they got it back to 17-14, I think. But then they quickly pulled away. And are you feeling pretty good about the Seahawks to win the NFC West?
I mean, if not them, who? I mean, the 49ers certainly didn't look like potential champions yesterday, at least the way they performed in the second half of that game. But no, NFL handicapping, an easy game. Who knew? Why? This is. I really know. I don't take for granted the start that we've had to this season. It has been a dream. The ball has bounced my ways, and the way it hasn't in years past. I sold the total in the Browns-Ravens game down to 44.5 yesterday, which was a miracle hit. If you saw the way that end of that game played out in terms of penalties and missed field goals and everything. But it was a very fun, another really fun Sunday. The Seahawks were my major takeaway just in terms of where they have, the equity that they got in the, hunt for a playoff spot was enormous with that win. And it was an impressive win at that. I mean, it didn't come the way I even really thought it would. 20 yards, 20 yards to go. Geno Smith just carving it to Marquise Goodwin was not something that I had on my bingo card. So, that being such an effective part of their offense was wild. But, Walker looks like the real deal. I'm assuming you would make him now the favorite for the offensive rookie of the year.
Clear favorite. Yep.
That guy looks good though. He's got some pop. And, if you have a balanced attack on offense in a year where league-wide offense has been extremely suspect, then particularly in an NFC where there's just no one distinguishing themselves outside of the Eagles, then why not the Seahawks? And people are probably, Giants fans, Jets fans are probably like, you guys still aren't going to give us any respect? No, I'm not. You stink. You just happen to be winning games against other teams that stink. So, that may continue through the rest of the season, but I would still expect regression. The floor is going to, the trap door is going to open on those teams at some point, I would guess.
I think so. I think the Jets are a little bit better than the Giants just because I believe in the Jets' defense a little bit more. I don't understand the Giants at all. I think that they'll close the season as a 500 team, which will still get them to 11-6, absurdly, and get them a wild card spot. But I think the thing with the Seahawks is that, I guess we foresaw in a way that the offense could be really good, which it's been, but I didn't think the defense had this level of competence in it. But with Tariq Woolen, with the talent they've got on that side now, keeping Arizona to 9 points, largely keeping the Chargers in check for most of that game before Eckler gets the garbage time touchdown. The Seahawks, they're perhaps a team to be reckoned with. We have a viewer question on the Seahawks division price. Now, still... No, there can't be still 15.
That's got to be still. Yeah, if that price is available.
Don't blow that. I'm seeing a lot of plus 500, plus 550, which I still think is a bet. I think they should be more like plus 300, plus 350, that kind of range. We'll learn a lot, I think, about the NFC West after this Niners-Rams game, where the Rams are 2.5-point dogs at home, which I don't entirely agree with based off of how the Niners looked, even though we've obviously been burned on that side before with taking the Rams in this matchup. But yeah, that's a nice segue into just talking about the NFC in general. And right now, who do you have as the team behind the Eagles as the most likely to kind of jump into the contender sphere after certainly San Francisco and Tampa Bay fell on their faces yesterday?
It's extremely tempting to sell everything about the Buccaneers right now. But if the season ended today, they're hosting a home playoff game. And Tom Brady is going to be a difficult out even with a team that's underperforming. So I'm not impressed by what I've seen from Tom Brady this season, particularly these last 2 weeks. but there is still a long way to go. I think you're counting on the young offensive line at this point to stay healthy and continue to get some sort of, just through reps and continuity, perform better. He's going to look better, throwing to the Godwins and the Evans of the world. Like that, the chemistry is not there because they didn't get any reps in the offseason. They didn't get any reps through the first 6-7 weeks of the season because they've all been hurt. You really realistically, like, this team needs to come out of their bye week, come into the home stretch of the season and play well for like the last 4 or 5 weeks. And they realistically should still be in the mix to win this title. And that's all because you have the most experienced playoff quarterback in history. And he's going up against a bunch of other teams and guys that just don't have any pedigree whatsoever. We are still waiting for Jalen Hurts to win his first playoff game. The Minnesota Vikings and Kirk Cousins have holes all over that roster. But this is kind of a separate discussion. They're going to be your 2 seed. I don't think the Vikings are going to start losing games anytime soon. Their schedule is very easy, and they can at least kind of eke out these ugly wins, which is what it takes in the NFL right now. So, I think the Vikings price will continue to get shorter, but I'm not buying them long term. I think whoever ultimately wins the West or the South is going to be the team to beat in the come the playoffs. And even as insane as it sounds, in light of what happened yesterday, I think that's still the Bucs.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what do you think, Drew, about the Carolina Panthers at 20-1 to win the South? Because they've got the tiebreak now over the Saints and the Bucs, and that defense is potentially, could be a top 12 unit. It's pretty good. And then the offense is, we don't talk about that, but I just think with this Tampa team does have a fair bit of downside. They also have a lot of upside. I think the concern would be that it's on Brady largely. Like, the offensive line has been fine. Now he's got Evans and Godwin back, who have both been fine and producing as expected, outside of Mike Evans dropping that 65-yard farcical walk-in touchdown yesterday. But Brady just isn't the same guy that he was last year. And there's obviously a lot going on with him. Who knows what's intruding into his mind and everything, but he just hasn't looked like the same guy. He's missing throws that he made even last year. So I'd be a little bit concerned about the Bucs, and everyone talking about, the Bucs just needing a wake-up call. Was it a wake-up call getting blown out on Sunday Night Football with the Chiefs? Was it a wake-up call almost blowing a 21-0 lead to Marcus Mariota and the Falcons? Was it a wake-up call losing to Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky? What can be a wake-up call now? 4th wake-up call in a row? What's wrong with the alarm? So I do think that it's a little bit of a concern, but they have so much talent that I think that you still have to regress back to the talent. But I think we have a question from Vaughn on Tampa to miss the playoffs at plus 220. I would not be doing that. If you're going to look at Tampa to miss the playoffs, I would try find an edge in the division, just because I don't believe at all in the Falcons at plus 275 in that range to win the division. Be looking at the Saints and the Panthers at 20-1. And if you do think that the Bucs are going to fall apart, really study which one of those teams that you want to back. And at the current prices, I'd probably be taking Carolina at 20-1 just because of the defense. And they have an easy schedule the rest of the way. But my team in the NFC, which I talked about last week, is my best bet this week. The Cowboys, I think on talent, they are perhaps the best team in the NFC, even edging the Eagles. I think that's neck and neck. I think on performance so far, they've been better than the Bucs, the Niners, the Rams, even the Vikings, just in terms of what they're showing week to week. It wasn't pretty yesterday for the offense. At the same time, it was Dak's first game back, and they still blow out the Lions by 18 points. I think the defense is a top 5 unit. The offense has the ceiling to be a top 5 unit. The only thing to really pour cold water on the Cowboys is they are still, they're still back in the division. That's going to be very steep, 1.5 back. And also the Eagles have the tiebreak at the moment. So that's the thing, is that they probably are going to have to win. There's probably, a 70% chance that they're going to have to win 3 road playoff games, which isn't great. But at the same time, I'm not sure you're that scared going to play the Rams or the Vikings on the road. And they'll have that familiarity with the Eagles as well. So can I interest you in some Cowboys at plus 850 to win the NFC?
You kept me off of a losing play with the Lions last Friday, so I thank you for that. But I need your honest assessment of what to expect from Dak Prescott throughout the rest of this regular season, and then in particular in a playoff pressure environment, because to this point in his career, he has wilted to a degree under pressure. And his performance last year against the 49ers in the wild card round will kind of be in the back of my head. Every time I'm hovering over betting a Cowboys future, I'm going to be thinking about that. Is that unfair?
No, I don't think so. And also, Dak went through like a 2-month stretch last year where he was just bad. Now he's carrying a bit of a cough. Maybe he's a little banged up. He got right at the end of the year, but that was against a trash Commanders defense that had given up on the season, and then the Eagles resting their backups in the last week. But I think, yes, Dak is unproven. I don't think Dak is a top 10 quarterback in the league. I think the gap between Dak and, say, Kirk Cousins is smaller, and, say, Derek Carr is smaller than maybe what most of the public would think. But at the same time, I'd flip it around and say that I'd still rather have Dak than Kirk Cousins. I'd still rather have Dak than Jalen Hurts, despite Hurts being third favorite for MVP. I think Dak Prescott is the better quarterback. And I'd rather right now probably have Dak than this current iteration of Tom Brady. Obviously, there's a lot more ceiling in Brady. It's weird talking about a 45-year-old ceiling, but I think he has more of a ceiling the back half of the year. So I think that Dak is as good as these quarterbacks based on what Stafford has shown. I'd rather have Dak than Jimmy Garoppolo. I think all things considered, you'd still have Brady as the best quarterback of the NFC playoff contenders based on what they're showing or what they're expected to show by that time. And then Rodgers, and then might be Dak third. Is that fair?
I am not counting Green Bay in the mix for a playoff spot right now. I would actually put the playoff likelihood of the Giants higher than Green Bay.
Green Bay is 3 games clear with the tiebreaker.
And plus Green Bay is like, the expectation was if they were going to get in with this ugly, miserable offense, it was going to be on the strength of their defense, which has not shown up. And so they're in trouble. So let me ask you for a couple of prices. Let's say that, because I agree that Cowboys getting the 5 seed being your top wild card seed, that seems likely to me, which means they're going to be in the 4-5 matchup wild card weekend. What would you line Cowboys at Seahawks, at Tampa, and at San Francisco? Because I think those are probably right now your 3 most likely 4 seeds.
Yeah, I think that they would be material favorites against the Seahawks, even if the Seahawks have played well enough to win the division. I don't know on average price off of that. Cowboys -3 in Seattle, something to that extent. I think against the Niners, if the Niners have played well enough to win the division, the Niners are probably slight favorites at home, but like -1. And then the Bucs, if they've righted the ship to win the division, they may not need to right the ship to win the division, but on balance with home field, I think they would be in a similar range to the Niners, -1, -1.5. So does that seem right to you, ballpark?
It does. Because really where I was going with it, if you're not going to catch 3 points in that wild card round, then I'm probably not betting the Cowboys in that spot. And then at that point, maybe it does make more sense to have an NFC ticket in pocket and try to leverage that in some way.
Yep. Yeah, I think if you just said like it's going to be close to pick multiplied by pick for the Cowboys if they do have to go on the road. Yeah, and so that's +700. And it's +850 in the market right now. And there's also a chance that they can still win the division and get the bye. That's not dead. It's just unlikely. All right, before we jump into Bears Patriots, riveting game. Please download the Roto World app to receive breaking player news all season long. Stay ahead of the competition by favoriting players on your roster. Get the latest injury updates, player news, and much more delivered right to your phone. It's available in the App Store today. Okay, 2 teams that aren't in the mix to win their division. At least I don't think so. Patriots, maybe 50. Get back to Patriots at 25-1. Sure. Bears are +8.5. The total has risen from 38.5 up to 40.5. Now, what is your look on this game, Mr. Dinsick?
Well, I don't agree with the steam on the total. I don't know who's going to the window and betting over in this one. Not much to really get excited about with the matchup of the Bears being able to go score and answer with the Patriots here. And, at the same time, like the every single box checks matchup wise in favor of New England. The big questions, revolving around who ultimately takes snaps under center. I'm expecting it's Mac Jones, but that's low confidence. And I don't love what I've seen with Mac Jones in this offensive system compared to what we saw with Bailey Zappi. And that's somewhat concerning because there's a very fragile locker room situation there right now. Mac Jones was your clear offensive rookie of the year last year through Thanksgiving. Like, it was no doubt, like he went from 10-1 preseason to like, what was it, 300.
I thought we didn't talk
400.
about this anymore.
The wounds have healed. This NFL season so far has healed a lot of wounds of last year. So I is fine talking about this now. But he was so clearly locked up for that offensive rookie of the year. And then the wheels just completely came off in terms of his ability to run offense in the final stretch of the season. And it really did feel like the locker room, which is full of vets, guys trying to win, weren't really there to have his back in a lot of ways. And, you kind of multiply problems now because Bailey Zappi has been good in relief. I'm not exactly sure how Jones, if he steps back into the role and he looks like he looked in October last year, where the Patriots were, pretty clearly a top 3 team in the NFL. So it's tough for me to really get involved in this one way or the other, but I'm going to be very carefully paying attention to sort of the body language, the chemistry that Mac Jones has with his offensive, his compatriots, and then particularly what the guys on the defensive side of the ball are, how they're responding to the success or lack of success that the offense has, because right now the Patriots are getting it done on defense. Yep. Amazingly, they have dropped in a whole new slew of outstanding young players in the secondary, and they are smothering passing offenses. Michael Judon, Matthew Judon and company, and that very, very solid front four of guys who are playing above their talent level. They continue to kind of wreak havoc in this game. Chicago getting shut out wouldn't surprise me. And then at that point, it's just a matter of how well the New England offense does. So this looks like an underspot for me, and I would lay the points with the Patriots or pass on the side.
Yeah, there's one interesting team in this game, and it's not the one coached by Matt Eberflus. I think the Patriots they do have some ceiling because of what they've shown defensively. I think the big question about the Patriots coming into the year was their cornerbacks, and now apparently they have the best cornerback room in the NFL because between what the Jones brothers, Jack and Jonathan, and Jalen Mills have shown, no one's talking about Jack Jones because he doesn't have the profile, but and I don't like to talking about him either as a Sauce Gardner man, but he's been in that same caliber as Sauce Gardner and Tariq Woolen in terms of defensive in terms of rookie cornerbacks to date. But yeah, it's the same for me. It'd be Patriots -8.5 or pass, but I preferred it a lot more at 6.5, which it was as a look ahead. And as well, the total, I think it would be under or pass for me too. But let's talk into some props. I think we have a question around the great Devontae Parker. Ooh. So it's an interesting one. What do you think of Devontae Parker tonight? I think his line is too low because his receiving yards are set at 30.5. His receptions are set at 2.5 on PointsBet. And the last time that he played with Mac Jones, he had 10 targets and 156 yards, which is a lot more than 30.5. Even last week, he seemed to establish a bit of a rapport with Bailey Zappi, going 4 for 64, getting the 6 targets too. So, look, I don't think the Patriots will need to throw the ball that much in this game. I think it'll be a running-focused attack. There'll be a lot of Ramondre Stevenson. My favorite bets in this game, outside of Devontae, would focus on him, where his longest rush over-under is 15.5. I'd be taking the over there. He's gone over in 4 straight. His rushing attempts is 13.5. Again, I'd be taking the over there. I think he's kind of taken control of this backfield from Damian Harris, who we expect to play coming back off the hamstring. But still, I think this is Ramondre's show. I think Ramondre is a top 7, 8, 9 running back in the NFL right now. His rushing yards is 65.5. That seems a touch low to me too. Yeah. And the scrimmage yards as well. Just all in Ramondre Stevenson. Is there any player angle that you like, Drew?
No, but I could have guessed what you were going to say, but I agree almost across the board on all of those looks. Certainly, if this is a Mac Jones show, Parker is the guy in the passing game, and option 1, 2, option 1A, 1B, 1C is Ramondre Stevenson for the Patriots, just conceptually in this contest. So that's exactly how I would expect to get it done.
Yep. Okay. Before we jump into NBA, if you want more betting, DFS, and fantasy advice right before kickoff tonight, tune into our NFL on NBC Sports YouTube channel at 7 p.m. Eastern as Vaughn Dalzell, Lawrence Jackson, and Kyle Dvoracek answer your questions prior to kickoff between the Bears and the Patriots. All right, let's talk about the NBA. Want to get some of your overarching thoughts on the first week of the season. But let's start off with the Sixers, who I think are probably the most, outside of the Lakers, obviously, who are kind of boring because we kind of know what they are. They're bad. I think the Sixers are probably the most compelling team through the first week just because they are a surprising 0-3. Wouldn't read too much into their losses to Boston, who look excellent so far, or the Bucks, where that game could have gone either way.
Yeah.
Wesley Matthews hits a 3, pretty close to the buzzer to win it, but they do have a pretty bad loss to the Spurs. But are you sounding the alarm on the 0-3 Sixers?
I'm a 7 out of 10 in terms of panic.
Wow. Okay. It's a fair bit of panic.
Yeah. I bet a lot of Sixers stuff, but it's not looking good. No, I think there's the reasons for concern are pretty straightforward, which is they're getting solid play out of James Harden. Tyrese Maxey has taken a step forward, but it isn't resulting in meaningful improvement at the team performance level. And that means this is basically on Doc Rivers as coach. He is not getting the most out of the pieces that he has to work with here. They made huge investments in the second unit to try to solve some of the issues that were when Embiid is off the floor, the scoring just completely dries up. Well, that hasn't been fixed at all, even though they have much, much more talented guys coming off the bench there now. So it is very confusing what is going on there. And I hang a lot of the responsibility on Doc Rivers so far. And he's not a guy that has shown an ability to kind of correct a situation that's going poorly. He's a front runner. And that was kind of the whole concept of getting any kind of positive feelings about the Sixers this year, was that they were going to get out to a decent little start here and be able to front run a bit. And it's not manifesting at all. And when the going gets tough, the city of Philadelphia, obviously, thankfully, they're distracted by Phillies and distracted by the Eagles, because if this was like a daily topic of what is going on, I could see this situation curdling pretty quickly. Now, all that said, they do have James Harden performing at a relatively high level. So that's keeping me at a 7 instead of higher. But certainly the Eastern Conference is very, very, very good. There are a lot of very talented teams. As far as I could tell you, everyone you'd be concerned about having taken a step forward took a step forward. This is going to be, if you find yourself in a play-in situation because you had, a sleepy month of, a month of October and November, then, forget about any kind of championship equity. So not going great so far for Philly.
Look at you jumping off the Sixers bandwagon. We'll let the record state that I'm firmly still on the bandwagon. I think they'll be fine. They've got a bottom 10 offense at the moment. That just cannot sustain. It's not going to sustain. They're going to have a top 10 offense. Embiid, Harden, Maxey, that's just too much talent. Harden and Embiid was the most efficient two-man game in the NBA last season. I mean, yes, it's looked clunky, but Harden, to your point, he looks thinner and he looks better. And him having more explosion, I think, is really significant. The concern would be the defense, where Embiid was really bad defensively in that first game against Boston. Yes. I don't think he's going to be that bad going forward. But if there is a concern about the Sixers, I thought that they would have a top 10 defense. And now it's looking more like they might have a bottom half defense. It's been bottom 10 in the league so far. Very small sample. They were able to shut down Milwaukee. But I think that might be quite a few teams that can shut down Milwaukee until Chris Middleton comes back. It's not always the prettiest half-court offense, but I think the Sixers will be okay. I think they're still figuring things out in the rotation. I don't trust Doc at all, but going back and forth between Trez and Paul Reed, D'Anthony Melton, Daniel House, new guys in the rotation. PJ Tucker's played 3 games in his career as a Sixer, so I think that there will be some growing pains, but I'm just trusting Harden and Embiid. That's just too much of a foundation for them to be this bad. Still project them going forward as a top 4 seed. Are you a little concerned about your Brooklyn Nets based on what they showed in the first 2 games? They righted the ship a bit after that disaster against New Orleans, beating Toronto, but Ben Simmons doesn't look great.
No, he doesn't. It's a long season, and they don't have the pieces that I was ultimately, like I said, assuming that they're healthy, assuming that Harris and Curry are out there shooting well around the rest of the guy, around that core, then all of a sudden this is a decent looking, playoff team. And if Ben Simmons is ultimately not part of the rotation because he's just not the player we once knew him to be, then I'm okay if it's Claxton out there at starting, in the center role. I don't think he's a super concerning liability or spacing concern for them. So, you might see a closing five that looks a little different than what was expected. But assuming you have Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant on the floor together and some shooting around them, I still think that this is going to be a tough out come playoff time. But no, they haven't looked great, and the defense has been a problem. And I kind of was hoping in the back of my head that there was a little bit of a internal mutiny going on, so that they would fire their head coach there and move on to one of the guys who's down the line, who they like a little bit better. But most of what I'm seeing from a Nets standpoint to me looks like effort issues, and effort in October doesn't really concern me. Whereas with the Sixers, like, Embiid's out there flopping around, falling on the ground. Like, he's going to get himself hurt at some point. And then it's going to be, that all of a sudden you're like, oh, Doc Rivers and James Harden are who we're counting on to get the Sixers into the top of the AFC. So that's kind of how I would juxtapose those two teams. So my concern level for the Nets, given what we've seen so far, is at about a 3 out of 10.
Okay. I'd be a little bit more worried, and just because of what Simmons looks like. Because Simmons is their ceiling. If you remove him from the picture, then it's largely the same team that got swept by Boston in the playoffs. A close sweep, but a sweep nonetheless. And what I would just be watching for in every Nets game is, what does it look like when Claxton and Simmons are on the floor together? Because I don't think Simmons can play 5. I just don't think that's his game. And if he's not playing 5, then there's someone else playing 5, and it's going to be Nick Claxton, because he's the only other guy that can do it. And they have not, when they've been on the floor together, it just hasn't looked like it can work, just because the spacing, it's so, like, the whole point of having Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and another shooter like a Seth Curry or Joe Harris, when they get healthier, is that you have impeccable spacing. But then Simmons and Claxton together just torps that. It kind of torps the theory of the team. So there should be a world where Simmons can, get into that role where he can be more active as a screener, as a cutter, offensive rebounding. But it hasn't looked so good so far. Anyway, we are done. Drew, don't forget to check out NBCSportsEdge.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks for everyone watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to subscribe and rate us. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick, we will be back tomorrow.